So, hello, my dear class 9 students. Hope you are fine at home. Due to this current situation of COVID 19, we have suffered a lot, yet our classes are going on. From April 2020, we started with online classes over WhatsApp. Basically, we moved on with initial explanations through audios or giving away notes. At the latter phase of the time, we started developing videos, not all the teachers, but now we are coming up with video classes for you so that your classes are not hampered. Though we are not in a condition to provide you that serene atmosphere of the offline classes that usually happens, but yet we are trying our level best to impart the best thing that we can give you. We are trying our level best. So with such a hope and aspirations so that your continuation of studies just moves on, I am here today to explain you the chapter 3 of your syllabus of general science. That is the chapter's name, Atoms and Molecules. So what you need to understand regarding these atoms and molecules. So first of all, a history or a journey regarding this atom. Before coming to atom, let me tell you regarding the matter that we have discussed in chapter 1 and chapter 2. Initially, we understood that matter is something that occupies space and has volume. Now, when we talk about the matter, we need to go in deep. And this is not the thing that we are discussing of today. This is the thought, this is the mindset that has wandered in the minds of the people existed long back ago. It was years before when this concept of atom was started. If we go through, today I shall be discussing regarding the early concept of atoms. Now, if I talk about the early concept of atoms, I need to explain you that this concept of atom didn't started today or just merely 50 or 100 years back. It's a long years ago, that is 500 BC. Alright, 500 BC. That means 500 years before Jesus Christ was born. And you would be surprised, or you would find it rather interesting to know that this concept, the atomic concept, began all from India. When people started learning about the fact of matter, people tried to wonder about what consists of matter. It all began from India. I told you it to be very interesting and surprising is because it all began from India. Our ancient philosophers and thinkers wondered about the idea of the matter and its divisibility, the divisibility of matter. You would be glad to know that Indian philosophers such as Maharshi Kanad and Pakhuda Katayama. These were the early philosophers who had treasured regarding the idea of divisibility of matter. Maharshi Kanad, a well-versatile, knowledgeable person who was treasuring about the idea, wondering about the idea as what matter is made up of. So what he said, that matter is made up of small, tiny particles. Alright? Now, the basic concept started as they tried to illustrate the idea of matter, what they actually said or what they mentioned. Maharshi Kanad, this man, Maharshi Kanad, he hails from India. That is the reason why I told you that the concept of these atoms began from India. Now let me talk about Maharshi Kanad, who was a philosopher as well as thinker, a knowledgeable person. What he said, that if we go on dividing the matter, alright, if we go on dividing the matter continuously, a time will come when we will obtain the smallest particle of a matter. Alright, smallest particle of a matter. And this smallest particle of a matter, he mentioned the name as Parmanu. Alright, he mentioned the name as Parmanu. the smallest particle he named as Paramanu, which in today's world we call it as atoms. Alright, so the basic initial introduction began from India, where he said this, the smallest, when we go on dividing a matter, a time will come when we will obtain the smallest particle, and that particle he named as what? Paramanu. Now once again, his idea, what this Maharshi Kanad had said, as I told you just now, Pakuda Katayama, one more philosopher from India, he supported what Maharshi Kanad had said. Alright, what Maharshi Kanad told, he supported his idea, and what he basically told, he said that what Maharshi Kanad has said, that if we go on dividing the matter, and time will come when we will obtain the smallest particle, and which he named as Paramanu, alright, which he named as Paramanu, this Paramanu or this smallest particle of matter cannot exist independently. They cannot exist alone, alright, they cannot exist alone. They will combine together to form what we get as matter, alright, what the matter that we find around us, anything we learned in chapter 1 and 2 regarding matter, that all the substances around us, everything, or even ourselves, all are composed of matter. And this matter, what they were talking about is that regarding the matter, that matter comprises of tiny particles called as what? Atoms. Matter consists of tiny particles. Alright, matter consists of tiny particles called as atoms, but it was not named as atom at that time by Maharshi Kanad. According to Maharshi Kanad, this was Paramanu. In Hindi, probably in India or in Hindi, we call it as Paramanu. Alright. Now you see, this idea which began from India long years before, even that is the reason why I say 500 years before Jesus Christ was born. Alright. And by now you come to know that this idea, or regarding the divisibility of matter that we have discussed so far, this idea was further illustrated and well explained, not exactly well explained, this idea was supported by Greek philosophers also. Greek philosophers such as Democritus and Leucippus. Alright, Democritus and Leucippus. These two philosophers also extended their idea and mentioned the same thing as being told by Maharshi Kanad and Pakuda Katayama. What Democritus said is that if we go on dividing the matter, a time will come when we will obtain the smallest particle beyond which no further division is possible. Alright, that means if we go on dividing the matter, a time will come when we will obtain the smallest particle. Alright, smallest particle beyond which no further division is possible. Alright, beyond which no further division is possible, and he named this particle as atom. Now you see where the basic difference lies. The idea is same with the Indian philosophers and as well as the Greek philosophers. The idea is no doubt anything different, but only difference that we find is that it is Paramanu and this is atom. Only the name Paramanu was given by the Indian philosophers, and the name atoms were given by the Greek philosophers. Now let me talk about these philosophers that we are talking about. You might wonder about the fact as why we are telling them as philosophers or thinkers. Rather, when we are discussing something regarding science, probably we need to tell those who invents or find out something, they might be called as scientists, but why we are not telling them as scientists? One thing you need to remember regarding this fact is that they are not called as scientists as because they do not have any practical evidence. That is the reason why I mentioned all were hypothetical assumptions. Alright, these were something which was being thought, wondered, the idea was being thought, idea was being created, but it didn't have any experimental verification to the subject matter. That means they didn't have any practical evidence as what they were telling. Since they were treasuring about the ideas, some similarities might come across which people found it to be relevant, believing on the fact. As such, I told you when at the very beginning that these were the people who were highly knowledgeable, and people really admired their words, what they told, because something were relevant to what they spoke. And as accordingly, people also accepted their ideas. But these people could not be called as scientists because they didn't have any scientific evidence. To be called a scientist, a person should, whenever a person is dictating or a person is explaining something, person should have a practical evidence, a proof to the subject matter what is being told. So that is very much important. So that is the reason why they cannot be called as scientists. So they are called as thinkers or philosophers. Now regarding this idea of divisibility of matter as explained by Indians and the Greek philosophers, this idea remained as a hypothesis. That means there were no practical evidence. So it remained as a hypothetical assumptions until when, until the end of 18th century. Long back, if you compare the timings, the idea got started from 500 BC. That means 500 before Jesus Christ was born. This idea remained as prevalent path, alright, it went on, but no further. People might be thinking, many people might have wondered about the fact, but there was no practical evidence to what was being told, alright. As a result, it remained as a hypothetical assumption until the end of 18th century. Until the end of 18th century, it remained as a hypothetical assumptions. Later on, at the latter phase, that means by the end of 18th century, some people came out with practical evidences, and they were somewhere called as scientists. And what were they? These were the discussions that were being given based on the thing that it had some evidence to the subject matter. Alright. So in my next video, I shall be telling you regarding the findings as made by those scientists and what all types of laws they have said or what laws they have explained. Okay, thank you.